One of the most contentious issues of this legislative session has been the extension of the tax incentive for horizontal drilling, which was set to expire next year. The House and Senate passed a new version of the severance subsidy and sent it to the governor. I talked to Oklahoma Watch reporter Warren Veith about the subsidy and the differing opinions about the need for it. Warren, how does the new formula change the tax incentive for drilling in Oklahoma?
Well, Dick, for nearly half a century, Oklahoma's had a basic gross production tax rate of 7% on all oil and gas production. For the last 20 years, we've also had a temporary tax incentive for horizontal wells that tax them at a lower rate. What the legislature just did is replaced that whole calculation with a new formula, permanent formula, that will tax wells at 2% for their first 3 years of production and 7% for the remainder of their production. The blended rate will probably wind up about 4%. So we've now got a 4% rate where at one time we had a 7%.
And this is not just for horizontal drilling?
No, the new calculation will apply to all wells, vertical and horizontal. That's an expansion of the tax break that is on the books right now.
What's the fiscal impact?
In the short term, not very much, because we've been giving these horizontal wells a tax break for the last 20 years. Longer term, currently that horizontal well tax break costs the state about $250 million a year. Longer term, this lower rate will reduce state revenues to a lower point than they would have been if that tax break had been allowed to expire in 2015 as it was supposed to.
Some energy leaders have maintained that they want the subsidy to continue, while others say it's unnecessary.
Yeah, most of the industry backed this tax reduction, but there were very important dissenters. In fact, CEOs of several sizable oil firms, Stacy Schusterman, CEO of Samson Energy in Tulsa, said that she thinks the gross production tax is a very minor factor in companies' calculations. Tom Ward, who used to run Sandridge, said the same thing. George Kaiser, who runs Kaiser Francis Oil Company, also said this is not what determines where you drill. I should mention that George Kaiser, through the Kaiser Family Foundation, is one of Oklahoma Watch's funders.
And the CEOs of Chesapeake, Devon, and Continental did not speak with you on this story?
They did not, but what we did is we looked at the documents that those three companies had filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and also at the presentations they'd made to Wall Street analysts. And what we found that was, at least in the case of some of their oil plays in Oklahoma, they were expecting rates of returns that were significantly higher than what they expected in other states. And the reason we tried to make that comparison is because these three companies had stated publicly that if that tax goes back up to 7% next year, as it's scheduled to do, we might cut our drilling in Oklahoma by as much as half.
So what you found in the SEC filings and the reports to investors seem to be in contrast to what was actually being said about whether drilling would continue in Oklahoma, would be curtailed or moved elsewhere.
At least with respect to the specific fields they mentioned. For example, Continental said its Scoop oil play in south central Oklahoma expected to generate a 70% rate of return over the life of the wells. That compared to 50% in North Dakota's legendary Bakken field, where they're also active.
How important is the tax rate for the purpose of deciding whether to drill in a particular state? You're limited anyway by where the energy is.
Well, if you raise or lower the gross production tax by 1%, that causes a 1% raise or lowering of the return you expect to get from the well. According to some of these CEOs, that's a minor factor. You could bump that by two or three percentage points either way, and that wouldn't necessarily tip the scales in favor of other states.
Those who have opposed the subsidy, including George Kaiser, why do they oppose it?
Most of them have said that horizontal well tax break was intended to be a temporary incentive to get an exotic new technology off the ground. In its first year, 20 years ago, it cost the state $2 million. This year it's going to cost $250 million. Horizontal wells now account for 70% of all wells drilled in Oklahoma. That's the norm now. It's not a new emerging technology that has to be subsidized.
Warren Veith from Oklahoma Watch, thank you.